Quinoa was cultivated in the Andean mountains for thousands of years. It was only in the 80s when a group of American friends decided to create a company named Quinoa Company, importing quinoa from Bolivia. Almost 40 years later, these few hundred kilos of seeds evolved into an international trade market of 100,000 tons. Due to its nutritive value and tolerance to harsh climate, international quinoa cultivation expanded fast and steady in the 80s and up to exponentially since 2013, when the United Nations declared the International Year of Quinoa. Today, more than 100 countries run field experiments or are actively involved in commercial quinoa production.
Nimenhao, my name is Daniel Bertero. As a consequence of international demand, production of quinoa in Bolivia increased in a sustained way since the early 80s and was to become exponential after the year 2000. Peru, on the other hand, took more time to reach the exponential phase, but was soon to overcome Bolivia as the main quinoa producer. Today, both countries still dominate the international production of quinoa. Bolivian exports increased exponentially since the start of the 21st century, and price skyrocketed, reaching more than 6,000 US dollars per ton by the year 2014, perhaps as a consequence of 2013 being the International Year of Quinoa. Peru followed a similar pattern to that of Bolivia. Not only was to become the main quinoa producer, but also exported at a global level. Quinoa price fluctuations observed around the year 2014 raised international concerns about the dependence of production of quinoa in countries like Bolivia or Peru. The International Journal of the Economist published an article in which it suggested that countries should focus on local production for the local markets. Before that, the market was dominated by Bolivia, Peru, and a little bit Ecuador as quinoa exporters, and by North America and Europe as the main quinoa importers. These conditions were already ready for that, as European countries, the United States or Canada had started breeding programs before were evaluating new cultivars adapted to the local condition and were ready to provide the market.
Today, South America accounts for just 3/4 of quinoa global exportation, since North America and Europe had already reached a quarter. 1,500 tons for North America and almost 20,000 tons for Europe. Asia, Australia, and Oceania do not have significant trade. International export data shows that more and more countries are involved in quinoa trade today. Though Peru and Bolivia still dominate the market, there is a clear tendency of few emerging countries disputing their domain. Although the majority of imports are concentrated in the United States, Canada, and Europe, lately Asia has also joined this list.
As shown before, Europe is the fastest growing quinoa producer in the world today. Several companies contributed to this achievement, One of them, and perhaps the oldest one, is Quinoa Company, based in Denmark and led by Sven Jacobsen. This company produces several varieties which provide the international market. One of them is Titicaca. Titicaca is the main quinoa variety grown today in Europe. It was developed for the Northern Europe conditions, but was to become well adapted also to the Mediterranean countries. Spain, in the Mediterranean region, is today the main producer of quinoa in Europe. Another hub of quinoa breeding and production in Europe is made by Radical Crops, a company based in Holland and linked to Wageningen University, the British Quinoa Company, and Abbott Agra in France. Radical Crops has been doing breeding of quinoa for around 30 years, provides more than 23 countries, and is related to the production of around 10,000 tons in Europe. On the other hand, the British company grows quinoa in England and is led by Dr. Stephen Jones, and Abbott Agra is based in France and led by Mr. Jason Abbott.
Currently, Radical Crops is selling 9 varieties with low saponin content. One of them, Atlas, was selected for its salinity tolerance.
Another factor in quinoa expansion was the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture, ICBA, based in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. ICBA was responsible for the introduction, evaluation, and distribution of quinoa to the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. It selected 5 quinoa genotypes named Q1 to Q5, selected for tolerance to high temperatures and saline environments. Today, commercial quinoa production is already underway in countries like Morocco or Tunisia. Recently, the Andean region started to debate the economic sustainability of quinoa production. Lower international prices, price fluctuation, lower average yields in Bolivia were factors which are compromising the sustainability of production. Even in countries like Peru, where quinoa is grown in the west coast under irrigation, there needs more than 5,000 yield to cover the price of quinoa production. So there is a risk that countries like Bolivia or Peru could be left out of the international quinoa market in the medium or short term.
Quinoa production in China has increased rapidly since 2011, when commercial production in Shanxi started. In 2019, these provinces were already producing quinoa. According to Dr. Chang Hui, more than 350,000 mu are involved in commercial production, reaching almost 60,000 tons per year with an average of 167 kilo per mu.
In conclusion, the production of quinoa evolved to a regional strategy with production focusing on the local region, and China is an example of this. In fact, developments in China have been faster than in any other country of the world, and the development of several locally adapted new quinoa genotypes make a significant contribution to this. One example of this achievement is the development of quinoa seeds, which are very similar to those produced in the south of Bolivia named Quinoa Real. Only China has been possible to develop such a quality for quinoa. So, under the current conditions, China is already perhaps the third quinoa producer in the world, and perhaps in the short term will become the first one.